Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're diving into a tense showdown. Tu Tieu and Yuri take Lin's DNA lie straight to the police, forcing her to face an official investigation. But will Lin try to sabotage the test before the truth comes out? If you enjoy the story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. The road back to the city was dark and uneven, and the farm lights shrank behind them like a memory that didn't want to let go. Yuri drove with both hands locked on the steering wheel. The sealed envelope sat on the dashboard between him and Tu Tieu like a quiet threat. No words on it, no name, yet heavy enough to change the air inside the car. Tu Tieu kept glancing at it, then at Yuri's face. He looked calm from the outside, but his jaw was clenched so tightly his cheek twitched. Tuong sat in the back seat, silent. His presence wasn't comforting exactly. It was protective, like a warning to anyone who thought they could follow them. Yuri's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another short message. If you want peace, stop digging. Yuri didn't respond. He turned the screen off and kept driving. Tu Tieu finally spoke, her voice low but steady. They're scared. Yuri's laugh was sharp and humorless. Or they're confident. They wouldn't message you if they were confident, Tu Tieu said. They'd just let you walk into the trap. Yuri's eyes stayed on the road. They're trying to make me hesitate, Tu Tieu nodded. Then don't. Yuri exhaled slowly. Tomorrow morning we go to the police. Tuong's voice came from the back, calm and clear. Good. Tu Tieu turned to Yuri, surprised. Tomorrow? Not tonight? Yuri tapped the envelope lightly with one finger. Tonight, we don't have procedures. We have emotions. Lin lives off emotions. Tomorrow we use rules. Tu Tieu swallowed. Rules won't stop her from lying. No, Yuri agreed. But rules can force her to lie where it becomes a crime. The car fell quiet again. Outside, city lights started appearing one by one, like eyes opening in the dark. Yuri's phone buzzed. This time it was his CFO. Yuri answered immediately. Talk. The CFO sounded strained. They're moving fast. I can't stop the paperwork tonight, but I can stall the bank verification until morning. After that, it depends on what you bring. What I bring? Yuri asked. Proof, the CFO said. Enough to challenge intent. Enough to show manipulation. If we can show fraud or coercion, we can freeze things. Yuri glanced at Tu Tieu. I'm going to get something better than proof. He looked back at the road. I'm going to get an official process. The next morning came too fast. Yuri barely slept. Tu Tieu didn't either. By sunrise, they were already outside Ansang Company. The building looked the same. Glass, steel, polished confidence. But Yuri felt like he was walking toward an ambush. He told his mother not to come. He'd called her at dawn, his voice firm, almost harsh. Mum, no meetings, no signing. Don't answer any calls from Lin, stay home. Lock the door. His mother's voice trembled through the phone. Yuri, I'm sorry. I know, he'd said, but sorry doesn't stop paperwork. Now, standing at the company entrance, Yuri adjusted his collar and stared at the security desk as if it could judge him. Tu Tieu stood beside him, hair tied back, eyes steady. She looked different today. Less hurt, more sharp. Tuong waited a few steps behind, hands in his pockets, scanning the lobby like he was counting exits. Yuri's lawyer arrived 5 minutes later, tie slightly crooked, expression already tense. Yuri, the lawyer greeted, I heard about the emergency meeting. Yuri didn't waste time. He pulled the sealed envelope from his bag and held it up. This is what Lin used to poison my mother. She claimed it's DNA evidence about Tu Tieu. The lawyer frowned. Have you opened it? No, Yuri said, and we won't, not here. Tu Tieu added, her voice firm. We want an official DNA test, police supervised, chain of custody, no room for switching samples. The lawyer's eyes sharpened with approval. Good, that's exactly what you need. Yuri nodded once. Before that, I want to confront her, face to face. The lawyer hesitated. Yuri, I'm not asking permission, Yuri said quietly. I'm telling you the plan. They took the elevator up. The doors opened onto the executive floor, quiet, clean, too calm for what was happening underneath. And then, like she'd been waiting for the camera to start rolling, Lin appeared. She stepped out of a corridor with a folder in hand, dressed neatly, smiling like she owned the morning. Yuri, Lin said warmly. I was just about to call you. Yuri didn't return the smile. Save it. Lin's eyes flicked to Tu Tieu. The smile thinned slightly. Oh, you're here too. Tu Tieu took a step forward. Say it again. Lin blinked. Say what? Tu Tieu's voice didn't shake. What you told Yuri's mother. Say it again, in front of Uri. Lin let out a soft laugh, like Tu Tieu was being dramatic for attention. Tu Tieu, why are you doing this? You're making everything ugly. Uri's voice cut through, cold and direct. You already made it ugly. Lin turned her gaze to him, switching instantly into concern. Yuri, I'm trying to protect you. I found out something sensitive and... Stop, Yuri said. His tone was so flat it forced silence. Do you have an original DNA report? Yes or no? Lin hesitated for half a second. It was tiny, but Tu Tieu saw it, and her eyes sharpened like a blade. Lin recovered. Yuri, DNA results involve privacy. I didn't want to cause chaos without... Yuri stepped closer, lowering his voice. You caused chaos the moment you told my mother, so don't hide behind morality now. Lin's lips parted. Her gaze darted to the lawyer, then back to Yuri. You brought a lawyer? Yuri nodded. And I'm bringing the police next. That made Lin's smile finally crack. Tu Tieu lifted her chin. You said my DNA doesn't match Mrs. Lan. If you're so confident, come with us and say it officially, Lin scoffed. You want to run to the authorities? For what? Family matters? Tu Tieu didn't move. For defamation, for fake documents, for manipulating people into signing away control. Lin's eyes flashed. Anger, then panic, then control again. You're accusing me because you're desperate, because you know the truth will come out. Yuri's voice stayed quiet. Then you shouldn't be afraid of an official test. Lin's gaze tightened. I'm not afraid. Good, Yuri said immediately. Then come. Lin laughed too loudly. Yuri, you're exhausted. You're letting her drag you into nonsense. Focus on the company, on the emergency meeting. Yuri cut her off. Funny how you keep telling people what to focus on. Then Yuri lifted the sealed envelope and held it up between them. Lin, he said, eyes locked on hers, you put this into my mother's hands and told her it was truth. Today we're going to find out whether it's truth or whether it's your weapon. For the first time, Lin looked genuinely cornered. Not because she didn't have words, because this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was becoming a procedure, and procedures don't care about tears. Tu Tieu took a slow breath. We're going to the police station now. If you're innocent, you should be the first to agree. Lin glanced around the hallway as if searching for someone, an assistant, an ally, a door to escape through. Then she forced a smile again, softer, pleading. Yuri, can we talk alone? Yuri's answer was immediate. No, the lawyer stepped forward. Ms. Lin, if you made a claim involving DNA, you should be prepared to support it. An official process protects everyone. Lin's eyes narrowed at the lawyer. You're siding with them? The lawyer didn't flinch. I'm siding with documentation. Yuri gestured toward the elevator. Last chance, Lin. Walk with us willingly, or we'll submit the complaint without you. Lin's smile twitched. You think you can scare me? Yuri's gaze turned icy. No. He leaned in slightly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. I think you're already scared, Yuri said, because for the first time, your lie has to survive outside your mouth. Tu Tieu turned toward the elevator, not waiting. Yuri followed. Tuong followed. The lawyer followed. And behind them, Lin stood frozen in the hallway, her folder clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white, because she knew exactly what would happen next. The moment they stepped into the police station, her story would either become truth or become evidence. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. Yuri stood with his shoulders squared, the sealed envelope in his hand like it was a live wire. Tu Tieu kept her eyes forward, breathing slow, forcing her heartbeat to stay quiet. Tuong watched the mirrored walls, not their reflections. He watched the corners, the way people do when they've learned danger doesn't always announce itself. Behind them, Lin didn't follow, but as the elevator doors closed, Yuri caught one last glimpse of her in the hallway, standing still, clutching her folder, staring like she was already planning her next move. A second later, Yuri's phone buzzed, an unknown number again. "You're making this worse. Stop now." Yuri didn't reply. He slipped the phone into his pocket and stared at the number like it was a fingerprint. Tu Tieu spoke softly. "She's calling it worse, because it's leaving her control." Yuri's jaw tightened. Good. The elevator doors opened. They walked out of Unsang Company and straight into the morning heat. The city already loud with motorbikes and horns, like the world didn't care that their lives were splitting open. Yuri didn't waste time. Police station, now. The police station wasn't dramatic. No courtroom benches, no angry shouting, no TV-style music. Just fluorescent lights, beige walls, and people waiting quietly with faces full of ordinary problems. And somehow, that made Tu Tieu's hands tremble more. Because this wasn't a performance. This was real. Yuri stepped up to the front desk first. His voice stayed respectful, controlled. "We want to file a complaint. Defamation and suspected forged documents involving DNA." The officer behind the desk glanced up, expression neutral. "Names?" "Yuri," he said, "and Tu Tieu." Tu Tieu added quickly, "And the person involved is Lin." The officer nodded, took notes, and waved them to a row of chairs. "Wait, an investigator will speak with you." They sat. Tu Tieu stared at the envelope on Yuri's lap. The seal looked untouched, innocent, yet it had already poisoned a family and pushed a company toward collapse. Tuong leaned slightly toward Yuri, voice low. "She'll come." Yuri didn't look away from the investigator's door. "Let her." A few minutes later, a man in a plain uniform stepped out and called their names. They followed him into a small office with a desk, a computer, and two chairs facing each other. The investigator sat down first. "Tell me what happened." Yuri placed the sealed envelope on the desk, but didn't slide it over yet. "This envelope was given to my mother by Lin. She claimed it contained DNA results proving Tu Tieu is not Mrs. Lan's daughter." The investigator looked at Tu Tieu. "Did you see the document inside?" "No," Tu Tieu said firmly. "She never showed anyone. She only told my mother the result to turn her against me," Yuri continued, voice steady. "After that, we discovered Lin also pressured my mother into selling 55% of Unsang Company shares to a man named Nok. That deal is being processed now, and there's an emergency shareholders meeting scheduled for tomorrow." The investigator's eyes sharpened at 55%. "Do you have proof of that?" Yuri nodded. "My CFO confirmed paperwork submission. I can provide call logs, messages, and my mother's statement," Tu Tieu added, carefully choosing her words. "We're asking for an official DNA test under proper procedure. Police supervised, chain of custody, sealed samples, because we suspect Lin is using fake results." The investigator leaned back slightly. "DNA testing is possible, but it must follow process. We cannot accept private claims as proof. If there's defamation or forged documents, we can investigate, summon involved parties, and verify any lab report." Yuri tapped the envelope lightly. "Then start with this." The investigator held up one hand. "Before we touch anything, tell me, was your mother the one who received this? Can she confirm Lin's claim directly?" Yuri hesitated for half a second, because he told his mother to stay home, to lock the door, to avoid Lin. But this wasn't a moment for pride. "Yes," Yuri said quietly. "She can confirm." "Good," the investigator replied. "We'll need her statement. And if you want DNA comparison, we may need samples from the relevant parties under controlled collection." Tu Tieu's voice stayed calm, but her eyes were intense. I'm ready. Today. Right now. I have nothing to hide. Yuri looked at her, surprised by how steady she sounded. Tu Tieu continued, but I won't accept anything without chain of custody. No private lab papers, no a friend checked it. Everything has to be official. The investigator nodded, making notes. Understood. Yuri then placed his phone on the desk. We've also received threats, unknown numbers. The investigator glanced at the screen, then at Yuri. Send these messages to our evidence email. We will record the numbers. Yuri nodded immediately. I will. The investigator finally reached toward the envelope, but stopped. This is sealed. If we open it, we do it as evidence. Are you willing to submit it? Yuri didn't hesitate. Yes, Tu Tieu added. Please document everything. Photos, time, signatures. The investigator nodded again. We will. He called another officer in, and in front of them, he photographed the envelope from multiple angles, recorded the seal condition, and placed it into a clear evidence bag. He sealed the bag with tape and wrote a case number on it. Tu Tieu exhaled, feeling like for the first time in days something wasn't slipping out of her hands. Then the investigator asked the question that hit hard. Who is Mrs. Lan? Can we contact her for a statement and a sample if needed? Tu Tieu's throat tightened. She's not available right now. Yuri's eyes flickered, remembering how Mrs. Lan had been avoiding Tu Tieu, how Lin had controlled access, how the house felt like a locked room. The investigator didn't press yet. We'll start with your complaint and the summons. If needed, we can request cooperation. Tuong shifted slightly, voice calm. Lin won't cooperate unless she's forced. The investigator looked up. Then we force cooperation through procedure. Outside the office, the hallway felt colder. Yuri and Tu Tieu were halfway back to the chairs when Tu Tieu's phone buzzed. A message from Yuri's mother. Yuri, Lin is calling me again. Yuri's blood turned hot. He typed quickly. Do not answer. Stay inside. Lock the door. I'm handling it. Tu Tieu watched him, then whispered. She's trying to get ahead of the summons. He nodded. She knows. As if on cue, a commotion rose near the front desk. Soft voices, then sharper ones, then the unmistakable sound of a confident heel on tile. Tu Tieu turned. Lin walked into the station like she was attending a meeting, not stepping into an investigation. She wore a polite smile, carrying a folder, followed by a man who looked like legal counsel. Sharp suit, calm eyes, the kind of person paid to make problems disappear. Lin's gaze landed on Tu Tieu first, not with fear, with satisfaction. Tu Tieu's stomach clenched. Lin stepped closer and spoke in a voice sweet enough to fool strangers. Tu Tieu, why are you doing this? Yuri moved between them immediately. Because you lied. Lin's smile tightened. Yuri, I didn't lie. I only warned your mother. I was trying to protect your family. Tu Tieu's voice cut in, steady and sharp. Then say it officially, in front of the investigator. Say, Tu Tieu's DNA doesn't match Mrs. Lan. Say it with evidence. Lin's lawyer cleared his throat politely. My client came to clarify misinformation. She does not consent to harassment. Yuri laughed once, cold. Harassment? You brought a DNA rumour to my mother and pushed her into a 55% sale. Don't call that protection. Lin's eyes flashed, then softened again as she turned on the tears, small, controlled, believable. Yuri, she said, voice trembling. You're listening to her because you're emotionally involved. I'm the only one thinking clearly. Tu Tieu stepped forward. You're thinking clearly? Great. Then you'll love procedure. The investigator appeared in the hallway, drawn by the noise. His gaze moved from Lin to Yuri to Tu Tieu. Ms. Lin? He asked. Lin straightened instantly, wiping a tear as if she'd just been wronged. Yes, I'm Lin. I'm here because I heard my name was mentioned. The investigator nodded. You will be asked to provide any document you claim exists regarding DNA results. Official documents can be verified. Private claims cannot. Lin's smile flickered again. I don't have it with me. Tu Tieu's eyes narrowed. Of course you don't. Lin's lawyer stepped in smoothly. My client has concerns but is not obligated to submit personal medical information in a public setting. The investigator's tone stayed calm. This is not public. This is an investigation. If your client made a claim that harmed another person's reputation, she must support it or be held responsible for spreading false information. We will issue a formal summons and request documents. Lin's face tightened, just slightly. Fine, she said. Summon me. I have nothing to hide. Tu Tieu didn't blink. Good. Then agree to an official DNA test. Lin's eyes darted to Yuri, then away. She forced a laugh. Tu Tieu, you're obsessed. Yuri spoke quietly, and somehow his quietness carried more threat than shouting. No, she's done being controlled. Lin's lips parted to respond, but the investigator cut in again. Ms. Lin, you will be contacted with a date and time. Do not contact witnesses or interfere with evidence. Lin's eyes hardened. Witnesses? The investigator glanced at Yuri. Your mother, for example. Yuri felt the shift instantly. Lin's attention snapped to that word like a predator smelling blood. Tu Tieu saw it too, and Twong behind them stepped slightly closer, subtle, protective. Lin smiled again, but it was colder now. Of course, she said. I respect the law. Then she leaned toward Yuri, lowering her voice like a whisper meant to sting. Yuri, she said softly, you think you're pointing at me in some courtroom, but you don't even know who's really on trial yet. Yuri's eyes narrowed. Try me. Lin straightened and walked away with her lawyer, heels clicking like a countdown. Tu Tieu exhaled slowly. The investigator turned back to them. We've started the process. Next step. Statements from involved parties and potential DNA collection if all required parties cooperate. Yuri's phone buzzed again, this time from his CFO. Emergency meeting time confirmed. Tomorrow 9 a.m. Yuri stared at the screen, then looked at Tu Tieu. Tu Tieu understood immediately. The fight was splitting into two fronts. One was truth, the other was time, and Lin was trying to win both. Tu Tieu's voice was steady. You go handle the company. I'll handle the DNA process. Yuri hesitated, because leaving her alone against Lin felt wrong. Twong spoke quietly. She won't be alone. Tu Tieu nodded once. I'm not afraid of her anymore. I'm afraid of what happens if we waste one more day. Yuri swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay. He looked at Tu Tieu, eyes intense. Do not meet her alone. Tu Tieu's gaze didn't waver. I won't. Yuri took one step back, then another, already moving toward the door. And as he did, Tu Tieu's phone buzzed. A new unknown message, short, cold. If you take that test, Mrs. Lan will never show up. Tu Tieu's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around the phone, because now the threat wasn't about her. It was about the one person who could end the lie for good. Tu Tieu slowly lifted her eyes toward the station entrance. Lin was gone, but her shadow wasn't, and the next battle was already waiting.